And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, and thank you for joining us this early morning, an unusual time, but circumstances being what they are, I know you guys are going to be in for a treat. And pardon the glitch with the intro in the beginning. For some reason, it was playing fine on one platform, but not on the other. So I'm glad it came together. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my incredible, amazing, insightful guest who I know you all are going to enjoy. I give you Jennifer Purcell.
Thank you for introducing me, Michael. So I, we're going to be talking about the unknown, and I guess as an introduction for myself, I also host a podcast called Living with Invisible Learning Challenges, and for me, I started that podcast almost 6 years ago, and it was I kind of got into it because I was listening to another podcast. Forget the title of it, but it was about domestic abuse and sexual abuse and topics like that. And just listening to that made me think, oh, maybe I could create a podcast about my personal experiences with learning disabilities or learning challenges, as I call them. And I wanted to share more about the learning difference I have, but also about the other ones that other people have, and to try to educate or raise more awareness about them.
That's amazing, and thank you for doing that because I feel like it's the one thing that people don't pay attention to or don't really even like if it's right in front of them, just write it off and will assume something. And so, thank you for bringing awareness to that. And one of the things that is interesting is, we talk about terms like, you mentioned neurodivergent in your bio, and we hear it a lot, but in your perspective, what is neurodivergence?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So for me, I didn't know about that term until I started doing my podcast and doing more research for topics and episodes. So I was used to hearing learning disability or learning difference. And when I was reading about neurodivergent, basically, my understanding of it is it's an individual who has a learning disability, or maybe more than one, because you can have more than one, and is going through life with that learning disability, or with their learning differences. And for me, what I've kind of noticed is that the neurodivergence piece, I think, is how neurodivergents interact with neurotypicals, and how they learn to interact with them, and how they, like me, probably have realized this world is more built for neurotypicals than neurodivergence, which is okay. I mean, that's probably because there were more neurotypicals to begin with than neurodivergence. and maybe some of those neurotypicals realized they were neurodivergent.
And do you think, in looking at the world the way it is, how some people are out there going, "Oh, it's the age of the neurodivergence. It's we're the this or we're that." And do you see that as helpful in raising awareness to it, or do you think that, in your opinion, is actually creating more separation and people misunderstanding what is really going on?
So that's also an interesting question. I think both sides of what you said could be true. Yes, it could be good for people to say this is the age of neurodivergence, because if they go about it, I don't want to say the right way, because I'm not sure if there is a wrong way to do this, but if they go about
Beneficial
it,
way?
yeah, if they go about it one way, then they, like, let's say they listen to this podcast or other podcasts like this, where you have a person talking about um, neurodivergence, or maybe it's a different topic, but they know about the topic, they have knowledge about it, then the listener, I would say, is gaining knowledge about that topic and is able to um, educate themselves in one way from the from that episode. But I would also encourage the listener to do their own research in terms of, like, Googling about the topic, or um, trying to read different perspectives, because there's many perspectives out there. Um, I think probably a different way that person could go about the research is, I guess they could you could try to just be aware of the perspective that is on the podcast, and I that would be good, but I don't know if that would be as eye-opening as doing your own research and finding some other things that you probably wouldn't have found if you didn't do that. If that makes sense.
It does. And one thing that I'm curious about is, what was your aha moment or your moment of clarity that said, "Oh, I'm not broken. I have a learning difference or a learning challenge, or if you want to use the term neurodivergent."
Mm-hmm. Um, so that's a good question. For me, I kind of always thought I was different in life, and I think I became more aware of it when I was in middle school and high school. I have an older brother who um, I'm pretty close to, and um, as you do when you have siblings, I think everybody probably does this, unless maybe they don't have a sibling, maybe they compare themselves to their friends. But I was noticing that for me, some things were challenging in school, and some things were easier for my brother. And so sometimes I was jealous of that, but I think other times I was like, I'm not sure if I could make it be easier for myself or not. But I think I was able to make some things easier once I learned about my learning difference, which so when I went to UC Berkeley for college, I noticed that that academic level seemed harder than what I was used to. And I also noticed that I was used to being given a lot of support beforehand and having my parents seek out that support, which I appreciated that. But then when I got to college, I was like, oh, now I have to seek out that support for myself. And I think I was a little scared to do that at first because I wasn't sure how to ask for it, or if somebody was going to say no, that they couldn't help me. But I basically thought, well, I'll just try because you don't know if what's going to happen unless you don't try. Um, and I actually got inspired to get my diagnosis for my learning difference from my roommate in college, my first one that I had in the dorms. She was deaf and used cochlear implants to hear. And I never met anybody like that before, so I thought that was kind of neat and cool. And I asked her how she got her accommodations at Berkeley, and she told me about uh, disability, the department there for students, whether it was for physical disabilities or learning disabilities. And I was like, I wonder if maybe they could help me out. Because at the time, I wasn't really too familiar with that department. And I was familiar with like going to the tutoring center and getting some help from tutors there, because one of my professors, I think, told me about that place. And basically, once I went through the once I went to the learning disability department and got my diagnosis after going through probably 15 or 20 different tests, I think, for it. I would say that would be when I had more of an aha moment, because as they were reading through the results of the testing and describing why I had challenges in certain areas, it was like a light bulb went off. I'm like, okay, now I know why I had those challenges growing up, and would look at my brother for comparison, or look at some of my friends, and was like, well, okay, that's part of me. Let's see if I can find out more why I have those challenges, and maybe make some of them not as challenging as they were, if that makes sense.
It does, and I don't mean to pry into your life in a way, but I feel like to benefit those that are listening and maybe relate to you more, we've been talking around what your learning difference is. Do you mind sharing what it is?
Yeah. In so basically, I'll try to share it from my understanding. You can also do your own research if you want to. But it is called nonverbal learning disability. That's, I know that's a mouthful. And basically, what it means is that it's kind of similar to autism, and I bring that up because it it's similar in a way where there's a spectrum of challenges that I have, and so does people with autism because of the autism spectrum disorder. And I think that's actually true with all learning disabilities or learning differences, because I think, like for myself, I have challenges with interpreting nonverbal communication, like body language or facial expressions, or tone of voice, or social cues. Those are some of the ones I can think of. And over time, I have tried to work on that area of challenge. and I've gone better at interpreting some of those things than I used to be. It is still challenging for me sometimes, but I do my best. And like one good example, I have a very supportive family, and I'm very blessed to have that. I know not everybody does. So for sometimes when I'm working with my my parents, my mom will say she is seeing something on my face, and she's not exactly sure what it is, because usually I look pretty serious, and I think I tend to look pretty serious because I'm just used to. I think I'm used to having more of a neutral, maybe blunt facial expression, and I don't know what my face looks like until somebody mentions it. So that uh, like when she says, "What am I reading on your face, Jennifer?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what my face looks like unless I look in the mirror. um and so I chuckle at that, because it's like her being a neurotypical, she can read the facial expression, but I can't as easily, um, being neurodivergent. So I think she's gotten used to uh, how I usually look, but also when I'm open to talking to her about what's behind the look, then I think that helps. So that's one area of NLD, is the short way of saying nonverbal learning disability. Um, there are many other areas. Some of the other areas are visual spatial. So that area is basically, so I have a challenge with judging physical distance between myself and another object. So a lot of times when I'm walking, I may run into something because I didn't see how close I was approaching it. I have that same problem when I'm driving. So I am very cautious when I drive. And I also have that problem when I'm carrying a heavy object and trying to move it around. I'm sure other people have that too. Um, and some people who have NLD have such a bad visual perception that they cannot drive. And I know that is very limiting, because I've taken a break from driving in my life, and that was challenging. But I was able to get around pretty easily with my friends and my family's help. And so some other areas, like I was talking about before, are the academic areas. I have challenge with doing mental math in my head. So a lot of times if I do it on paper, it's a lot faster than trying to do it in my head. I think that's probably true for other people too, even if they're neurotypical.
Not my strong suit.
Yeah. I mean, doing math makes my head hurt. So that's just, and it makes me tired. I remember when I was in school, actually even in college, but probably more before college, when I was learning more about math and didn't know I had NLD. I would get used to being able to read the mathematical language in a word problem. And then, like, let's say the next day or the next couple of days, I would be looking at that same problem and be like, why isn't this making sense anymore? So sometimes that can happen. And I think that's true for other people as well, where something will make sense at one point and then it doesn't for some odd reason. And I think also another broad area of NLD is so I've talked about nonverbal academics and visual spatial. I would say another area is I tend to, and I think other people who have NLD also do this, they focus more on the granular details of something than the big picture. And I would say what also goes with that is they tend to notice more of black and white, like the extremes of something, than the gray that's in the middle. And I tend to notice that as I've gotten used to, like, oh, I took that joke literally, because I don't get sarcasm a lot sometimes. And then I realized that person was joking either because they are smiling or they're trying to smile a little bit, or they're laughing at their own joke. That I'm like, okay, that was a joke. That wasn't something literally to take serious. So for myself in that area, I was hard for me to get to the point where I could understand sarcasm. I still have a challenge sometimes, but I think I got to it by watching comedians on TV like Trevor Noah or Stephen Colbert or John Oliver. Those are some that I can think of. And I liked watching that because for myself, usually there's an audience with the recording of that host, so you can hear when the audience laughs. So I'm like, okay, then I can laugh too. And eventually, I think if I'm watching it with my family, sometimes like in the beginning, I pause it and I'm like, why is that funny? Because I didn't know why it was funny. And they would try to help me understand why. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I think I'm getting it. So that can be challenging. And another area that I think is similar to that is executive functioning, like trying to plan ahead and trying to think of all the different pieces that you would have with going into a project or a goal you might have in life. Like one of the things I recently accomplished last year, still getting used to saying last year, I like I said earlier, I took a break from driving, and I took a break because I've been in a couple car accidents. I've been okay, obviously. But right after them, I was shooken up, and I think that's understandable. And somebody had asked me well, actually, they asked my dad when we were looking at car insurance after one of my car accidents, because I don't do that much driving, I try to have my carpool or have my parents drive me if I can, or friends. And the insurance person said, has your daughter thought of just giving up driving? And I forget exactly what my dad's answer was, but when he asked me that, because I think he was curious what my answer would be, I was like, giving up is too easy. Whether it's with driving or with something else, I think that's the easy way out of life. And yes, I think it's okay if you do give up on some things, but for myself, I decided not to give up on driving because um, I guess I didn't want the easy way out of that situation. And I wanted to um, challenge myself and see if I could make it be easier like I had with other things. Um, and in some cases it has been easier than it used to be. In other cases it's not. But with having the big picture in mind, when I knew I wanted to get back to driving eventually when I took that break in 2023 um, or 2023 and as I got used to being a passenger with my parents or with my friends and realizing I missed having the independence of just jumping in the car on my own and going to places and not having to plan around other people's schedule. Even though I appreciated them helping me out in the way that they did, um, I was wanted to be able to have my own independence and autonomy. Um, and I was like, well, okay, I can ease back into driving. And I did by learning, um, well, relearning it because I knew how to drive. With my family and with my friends in their cars, and with also um, going back through the rules of the road to make sure I would drive safely. And there's definitely many moving parts of that goal. Basically, make a long story short, I do have a car that I've had for a few months now, and I like sometimes I like driving, sometimes I don't. But I do like the independence that it gives me, and I think that's what I tend to focus more on than the actual um, disliking of driving. And I try to make it be more enjoyable by listening to music I like or an audiobook I'm listening to, and that makes it easier. Um,
That's really cool, and I'm curious, and don't mean to interrupt, but
mhm,
when we're talking about driving, like cars nowadays have sensors
mhm.
on the 360, so it alerts you if you're getting too close to something. Does that help you in driving, or do you not use that at all?
That's a good question. So I do use that feature because I used to have a car that didn't have any of that. So the car I had beforehand that I totaled. That's why one of the reasons I stopped driving because I had to. uh, I had a 2005 Prius, which was pretty old for me, um, and it did not. It so usually Priuses come with a GPS. We know that. But it didn't come up with a backup camera. So I got an aftermarket camera installed on it once I learned about that from a friend of mine who did it for his car also. And that was very helpful for me because then I knew, okay, not only do I have my mirrors and looking behind me in my review window, um, I also have this camera that can help me see around me better. Um, and it also had a camera to see in front of you. So usually I had a split view because it went over my rearview mirror, so I could see behind me and in front of me, which was cool. Um, and it didn't like do a physical beep when I was getting close to something, but it had these lines that were at different proximities that helped me judge distances better. So that did help. Um, The car I have now is a Tesla, and they have a lot of different features in that. And I got it because of the different features, and I know they're safe cars. And I like that it beeps when I am too close to a car or to an object, because then, okay, I know I need to put my foot on the brake quickly, or it also brakes for you, so you don't have to do it so quickly. But that alerts me faster than my own brain would alert myself. um, Especially because for me, with the kind of NLD I have, I learned from my diagnosis, my audio memory is the best memory I have. So when I hear something, I usually don't forget it that easily. Um, and so that is a good cue for me. And then my kinesthetic memory is the next best. So if I um, experience something with my body, like I find this interesting. When I'm driving to a new place, I usually use the Google Maps, so I know how to get there. But if I go to that place again, um, and frequently, I usually only have to use the GPS like maybe 2 times, and then I know how to get there on my own. Um, it's like I have my own map in my brain, which is kind of cool. um, and I think my brain works that way because it notices landmarks along the way, and I think other people probably do that too. And that's kind of cool. And so yeah, I do like the features of the cameras and the proximity, and also with other cars that are like Teslas, I know some of them have cameras that show your blind spots. Like when you have your blinker on, it will show you if a car is in your way of changing lanes, which I appreciate because sometimes I know I can't quite see a car clearly in my mirror. So that camera is helpful. And it will have a red line on that camera view when the car is literally in your way of changing lanes, which is good because that tends to draw my attention to that. And I mean, I could go on all day about the features, but I think there's probably a different area we could talk about.
No, I'm just glad it able to help because I like the freedom of being able to just get in a car and go somewhere and not be having to sit around and wait for someone to be available. So that to me is a freedom that I enjoy having, and I'm glad you get to have as well. And so I don't mean to branch off a topic, because I'm sure you have more to share about yourself, but one of the things I want to make sure we cover at least a little bit on is we talk about, invisible learning differences and challenges. Well, my question comes into, well, what are some of these invisible learning differences and challenges? And secondly, how do we identify them?
Yeah, so those are good questions to bring up. So the first part with what are invisible learning differences or learning challenges. So for myself, I've noticed this in some different ways, and maybe when I talk about how I notice it, you'll notice some for yourself. So with NLD, I would say one of the visible challenges like I was talking about earlier, is reading nonverbal language or communication. And that actually, I have a good story to demonstrate this. So, growing up, I was in Girl Scouts, and one of the activities my troop went to was a concert for American Idol. And that was pretty cool to go to. And I forget who was singing at the show, but I liked the music and I was dancing to it with one of my friends. And as there always are in Girl Scouts and other groups, we had a lot of cliques. And I knew about that. And I was probably maybe 10 or 12 at the time, maybe a little bit younger. And when I was dancing and having fun, I noticed my friend stopped dancing. And I was like, I wonder why she's stopping. And I looked behind me and I noticed one of the groups of girls or the cliques was pointing at us and laughing and making fun of us. And I'm like, well, I could stop dancing too, like my friend did, or I could just keep dancing and having fun and ignore them. And that's what I did. I ignored them.
Good for you.
Thank you. Because I was like, I don't care. I'm having fun. And I think that can be hard to do sometimes with people noticing and like in that way they were making fun of me, and I stood up for myself by just minding by continuing to dance and minding my own business. And I know that I think some people I think it can be challenging to do that because if you have done that before, maybe you've gone bullied in school or in other places. And I know that that's a challenge that people live with. And I think that can draw attention to the invisible part of learning differences because like one of the ways I would say something that's invisible could become visible is so I wear these glasses and they are for migraines and they help filter out light that would cause migraines. So to a certain degree, I think it's to 80% for these. And so for myself, I think unless I tell somebody what these glasses are, they're not going to really know what they are unless they've maybe seen them before. And so they see the glasses, but they don't know what they're for. So that part is invisible. But if they ask me, or maybe if they research on their own, then they'll discover what they're for. So I would say I've noticed that learning differences like NLD or like dyslexia or ADHD or autism or Asperger's all have an aspect of them that are invisible to the people that don't know much about them, like the nonverbal communication or like the challenge with mental math I was talking about earlier. I think that could be invisible too. And I think to some degree, the challenges with driving could be invisible because unless you know that person is having challenge with seeing distances between objects, they probably aren't aware of it. And I think that can be true in other areas. And then trying to remember the second part of your question. Sorry.
I think it was how we can identify.
Okay. So with how we can identify the
Like if
invisible
we
learning
have it,
differences.
how see it in
Mhm.
ourselves.
No, that's a good question. So, um, how I've been able to identify it myself is I've noticed that I try to be pretty observant of the challenges that I have because I like to work on them. Um, and I think, I mean, once I got my diagnosis in college when I was 19, I think I started noticing the um, the challenges and being able to work on them. But for people who don't have a diagnosis yet, or maybe aren't um, as aware of their learning differences I am, um, I would say probably one way you could become aware of the invisible part would be maybe trying to observe other people and like how they might respond to you in a certain situation. Like, I remember one of the people I've talked to who has NLD, and she was sharing more about it with me and was saying that sometimes she'll get feedback from people and say that they think she's stupid. And I don't really like that word because I don't think anybody is stupid. Maybe they just don't know as much about a topic as somebody else does. And I remember when I heard that, I was like, immediately I was like, you're not stupid. Um, and I've thought that of myself before. And I think maybe we need to challenge ourselves and see, is there actually something beneath that feeling of stupid or shame, whatever it is, um, and realize, oh, maybe we're actually feeling something else that is causing that. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. So sometimes when I have a bad migraine, um, I tend to focus too much on the pain sometimes, which is invisible actually to most, because I can mask my pain pretty well. I've been able to do that after having them for so many years. Um, but to me, it's obvious because I feel the pain. And I think for me, it it can be so obvious for myself that sometimes it's all I really notice, and other times I'm like, okay, how can I get my mind off of the pain? And so that's one of the reasons why I like to listen to music that helps distract me. And I know I'm kind of rambling, but I think that can be a way of noticing the invisible parts of like trying to see um, how other people react to things, and see if, like, sometimes when I'm out walking and I notice that it seems like the cars don't really see me when I need to go across the street. Um, that makes me feel invisible sometimes. So, what I try to do is I will try to wear very bright colors that make me more noticeable, and that usually helps. And I also wait and see if the car actually stops and looks at me rather than just other cars. Um, and if they don't, then I'm like, okay, I'll let them go first and go afterwards because that's safer. Or we go behind them. Sometimes that works if there's no car behind them.
Yeah, you're not rambling. Don't worry. You're and and transparency. Well, we were talking, about the facial cues and everything. When we were backstage before we went live, we were talking and she finally smiled and I was like, "Oh good, you're starting to relax." And she was like, "Oh no, I'm relaxed." And so yeah, it was interesting to see firsthand, like she was describing with her mother, that
Mhm.
even that happened with me. And so it's interesting how, do your friends point that out as well and be, and ask around it, or are they more, okay, that's just Jennifer being Jennifer, and we won't bring attention to it?
Um, that's a good question. So um, I think in the beginning, some of my friends um might have asked about me being serious, and I think sometimes I think maybe I took it a little too personally, but then I realized, oh wait, maybe they're just asking because they're genuinely curious and they uh hopefully care about me. Um and so I think I got used to that question because part of NLD, I think part of it is being serious because, like I was mentioning earlier, sometimes I don't get sarcasm because I take things literally. And so I probably am perceiving something in a serious way, naturally not noticing it until that person mentions that. And I think other people probably do that too with other things. And so I think that could be unquote in quotes normal, or for me there really is no such thing as normal. So um but and I say that because I think we do get used to routines in life, but routines can change. So and I think one of the things that I got used to was not knowing the outcome of something. So like when I started working on myself with with the challenges I have with NLD or with the challenges I have from migraines, I realized sometimes the approach I would take wasn't very successful, but you don't know that until you try that approach. And I think not knowing the outcome sometimes is uncomfortable, but also if you don't try, then you're never going to know what the outcome is. So I think it's good to try new things.
I agree. And I think normal's overrated myself.
Yeah.
And I often wonder who decided what was normal.
That's a good one. Yeah. I think I've uh wondered that too. And I mean, we could probably wonder that about a lot of things. Like who decides what is normal or what is in like a style of clothing or hairstyle. Um and I would challenge you to be okay with being your authentic self because I know I've come to be okay with that. And believe me, it took a while. But like that story I shared earlier when I was dancing at the concert, that is a good example of being myself. And I think for me, normal is boring, actually. I like life to be interesting. And I think that if you are more aware of the nuances in life, then it is more interesting.
I agree, and I actually have an interesting question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Not that all of them aren't interesting, but I think you'll like this one, really. In life, one of the aspects of being like the quote human being is our ability to adapt to our environment and scenarios. And I'm curious your opinion of your life and knowing what you know about having these, learning differences and challenges. Do you find that you are more adaptable or less adaptable to things in life?
Mm. Damn, you come up with good questions. I would say it depends on what we're talking about in terms of adaptability. So, um, what I mean by that is like, um, let's take the challenge of trying to multitask, because I sometimes have challenges with that, of doing more than one thing at a time. Um, like when you're cooking, that's a good example because you usually have to multitask when you cook. Um, I am pretty adaptable at cooking a new recipe if I follow the recipe to a T, and if I try to make it easy for myself by doing that. But I would say that I sometimes I want to branch out and do different recipes I haven't done before. Um, and I'm like, well, yeah, I could do that, but maybe it would be more fun to do it with a friend than just on my own. Um, so that kind of has two parts where you're adaptable to doing a recipe that you've done many times, but you may not be willing or as adaptable to other things. So I think I would challenge to that. It's good um, to try new things and to to see if you can handle them, like with um, like another area, I would say that you have to have good adaptability. That's a big word. In would be uh transitions, actually, because so like when you transition from college to the work world, you are probably used to having at least for myself, I was used to having the accommodations I had in college. Like I had extra time on tests. I had a program that converted my textbooks to audio so I could remember the material better. And I also had a program that helped me take notes. Um, and because I have an emotional support dog, I was able to have that dog with me when I was taking tests, which was pretty cool and relaxing for me because I did have test anxiety. And I bring those up because when I graduated, basically all those accommodations went away. because if I wanted to have them again, usually you have to pay money for them, whereas in college they're given to you for free, because you are paying for the tuition. So I think I try to adapt and realize, okay, well, maybe there's a way I could have some of the accommodations I used to have, in a way that wasn't that expensive. Like, you can do a lot with speech to text programs on your phone or on Google these days, um, or with Siri. And so I I do that. Or sometimes I will literally read aloud an article to myself. And I also think out loud and talk to myself a lot, which is, I think, normal. There's that word again. um, and I also, I have two dogs and I love to talk to them, and I pretend that they talk back to me, and I have different voices for them too. So that kind of makes me laugh sometimes because um, I try to not take life too seriously, and by doing their voices, that will help me. um, and so I think we can become adaptable to certain things, and also I would say resilient works with that, because when things are challenging and they don't always go the way you expect them to, I think noticing the ups and downs in life, like you would on a roller coaster, um, is good, because unless you remind yourself of the progress you've made, you're going to stay stuck in that down. Because I know that has happened to me.
So what accents do you give your dogs?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I would call them accents per se, but they are different voices. So yeah, I guess that is an accent. So like one of them is, her name's Truffles, and I've had her for 15 years, and
Oh wow.
yeah, she's pretty old, but she she's my angel. And she I remember sometimes when I was walking on campus with her, because I had her the last year and a half at the school with me. And people would say, "Cute dog." And I'm like, "Thank you." um, and uh, I think, like, if they knew me, yes, that is true, but they would know it's more than just that, for me. Um, there's a reason why dog is God spelled backwards.
Yeah, I agree.
So, uh, like when I am trying to cheer myself up or bring some lightheartedly into a conversation, I will do Truffle's voice, or I'll do Snickers' voice. That's my other dog. Um, and Yeah, I have fun doing it with myself, but I have more fun when I do it with my family or my friends, because then I see their reaction to it and I make them laugh or smile. So
Well,
that's
that's
cool.
cool. So we're
Um,
actually at the hour mark. Are you needing to go, or do you have time for another question or two?
yeah, I have time for more questions. This is fun.
So yeah. So one question I have for you is, and you can make it as personal as you want or general as you want, though, is going through life. What are relationships like in
Mm,
your world? Because we know what they're like for us and hard to navigate. I can't begin to imagine what it's like to navigate in your world.
hmm. So That is definitely one I've reflected on a lot lately because some of the relationships I had um, last year and had for a while ended. And sometimes I wonder if they ended because of something I did or because of how the other person perceived an action of mine. Um, and sometimes I think so, like, one of my friends, I was kept in touch with on and off from Girl Scouts, and she was a really good friend. Um, but she had her own challenges in life, as we always do. And I think at one point in time, I took some of the challenges she had a little too personally because I thought, oh, maybe because she's um, interacting with some of the same people I do, maybe that's part of the reason why she has those challenges. Um, and I think sometimes maybe other people do this too. I tend to dwell on why a relationship ends or why somebody um, decides to not be friends with you anymore, but that's not usually helpful. Um, and I say that because, um, yeah, you can try to figure that out, but I think if you do that too much, you hinder yourself from creating new relationships because you probably are afraid of that happening again. Um, and I think it is good to see if you can learn some things from a relationship ending, but I don't think you should try to learn um, too much in terms of the negative side because sometimes that can be hard to get out of. So, like growing up, I didn't go to a traditional public school. I was homeschooled actually. So I went to an online charter school. And so literally my relationships were with the people that I was uh, interacting with, like my family and my friends from where my parents worked and from Girl Scouts and other groups like that with activities like sports. So I had a little bit of a like secluded um, group, but I would say it wasn't as secluded as it could have been because my parents decided to do a lot of international trips as we were growing up. And I'm fortunate that they did that because I have a pretty um, broad view from that. And it's actually kind of cool. One of the places I went to when I was 8 was Italy. And I bring that up because I'm we were going there for a conference on on um, non-resistance. That's what it was on, and the Dalai Lama was there, and it was pretty cool to meet him. And one of the questions my brother asked him was what he would do to try to help change the world. And that's a big question. But he said, the Dalai Lama said, travel and make friends. And so my family has tried to do that wherever we go. Sometimes that's challenging in other areas than um, than some. But one of the ways we did that was like if somebody helped us when we were trying to drive to our hotel, and maybe we got lost. There were a lot of times where we would stop and we would ask somebody directions for to the hotel or to wherever we were driving. And if we saw that person again, or if we weren't sure we were going to, rather than just saying thank you, we would try to um, like sometimes give them money, which they usually didn't accept. But we were like, okay, well, let's try to remember where we saw that person and maybe we'll see them again along our trip. And sometimes we did. So we would bring them back like some flowers or some food or something like that as a thank you. And that was one way we made friends. Another way we had um, these Velcro mitts you could wear on your hand, and it had a ball that was Velcro and it would stick to it. Um, and we would play with those in parks that we would go to. And we always had an extra set with us that we could use to see if maybe some kids wanted to play with us. And in doing that with them, they had a lot of fun. They were like, okay, so we would try to say you can keep them, and then they can spread the fun around. So that was also kind of cool. Um, so um, I would say I've had positive and negative experiences with relationships in life. Like one of the things I really don't like, and I think probably others have had this experience, is when somebody ghosts me. Um, and Like when they stop communicating with me, whether it's through text or email or whatever, um, or sometimes it's physical ghosting. Um, I often wonder why they do that and if they maybe do it not just because of something that went on in our interactions, or maybe because of something they're going through in their life. And so I've gotten used to being left behind or left hanging from ghosting, and like, okay, then I'm not gonna I try not to do that to other people, um, because I know what that feels like, and it's not usually a good feeling.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that gets ghosted.
Nope.
But I agree. It's when I get ghosted, it's like my first thought is like, what did I say? What did I not say? What
Mhm.
did I do? What did I not do? And then, like, a couple days later, I'll be like, it's your loss and move on. It's like,
Right.
but yeah, it's up front, it's like you can't help but internalize and go, what did I do? And
Mhm.
chances are, most likely, 99%, you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
But that's where our minds go. And it's interesting how we're talking about the differences between us, and yet you and I, being different spectrums, having the same experience. So it's like, oh, so there is common ground, we
Mhm.
can say.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the common ground and the differences because I think that's one thing that is challenging when somebody is trying to get a diagnosis for a learning difference or for even a, a medical condition they could have, like migraines. Because I have found there are so many similarities between learning differences and medical conditions that it's like it's hard to diagnose them because of the similarities. Um, but I would encourage that person who is trying to get the diagnosis, whether it's for a learning difference or for a medical condition, to not let the similarities stop them, because I know when I found out that I have an LD and was born with it actually, and when I also discovered the migraines, it helped me learn more about myself, and I think that can be true with other things in life. And it's good to get a diagnosis from a professional. Sometimes that takes a lot of money, and sometimes people don't have that. So I think it's also okay to try to do your own research and give yourself a diagnosis as long as you do it thoroughly, because sometimes, because of the overlap in areas, it can get confusing. Oh, maybe I don't just have only have NLD, maybe I also have dyslexia or um, autism or something else in that mix. Yes, you can have more than one learning difference at a time, but I would say that it's good to know those different labels, but it's also good to know that you're more than just those labels. Um, and I think um, that's good to notice the things that are unique to you, um, like um, like I was talking about earlier with my audio memory. I think that is unique to me, where I can remember things really well when I hear them, whereas some people who I know don't remember things as well when they hear them, which is okay. I mean, that's how they're wired. Sometimes that's hard to change. Um, and so I think noticing the differences on the common ground is a good thing to do.
Yes, and I think it's important to note too what you said, and I want to reiterate it. Wow, I actually got that word out. And that is, you're more than the diagnosis or the difference, the learning
Mhm.
difference or challenge. Because so many of us get caught up in labels that we start to think they define us, and they only define us if we let them. But if we choose not to let them, then, we can rise above. And so thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people, have that fear of going and getting checked and going, oh my God, I'm going to be now labeled dyslexic, or I'm going to be labeled with this or with that, and my
Mhm.
life's going to be different. And it's important to point out that it's only as different as we make it.
Yes, that is important. And I would say different can be good in some ways, and it can also be perceived as bad. But I would say the challenge is to notice that it's good or bad in that perspective or eyes of that person. um, and like you were saying, it is good to know that you're more than your diagnosis, because I know there's been times in my life where I will get so caught up in challenges that I have from NLD or from migraines, and then I stop having fun um, in certain parts. Like I stop having fun with my friends, or having fun with driving, or with trying new things, and I'm like, wait a second, how did that happen? um, and if you take a step back and you zoom out like a camera does, then I think you can see a broader perspective than just zooming in on the details, and being able to realize, oh, I got too focused on the label of NLD or chronic migraines or um, dyslexia or whatever the label is, and try to notice, oh, I have friends because people do like me. They do want to spend time with me because maybe you're really good at making them happy, or making them um, feel good with helping them with something. I mean, there could be many different things, many different reasons for why they want to be friends with you. Um, and noticing that has helped me not be so focused on the labels that I have. I think the labels are helpful because then you can realize different parts of you. But if you get too focused on them, then that's the only thing you think about.
Right. And I want to take a second and pivot to an aspect of your life that I want to give you an opportunity to speak about,
hmm
and that is the NVLD Project Social Ambassador.
Okay. So basically, the NVLD project came about, or I discovered it when I was starting my podcast, Living with Invisible Learning Challenges, because um, I remember when I was in the beginning of creating the podcast, I was wanting to find articles that were reliable and were good articles. And the NBLD project came up when I was searching. Forget exactly what it was, but I think it had to do with why people who have an NBLD have challenge with math. Um, and I read a blog from another NBLDer who has that challenge, and I was like, okay, now I know I'm not alone. Like you said earlier with ghosting. And I was, as I got into reading the articles more and sharing my thoughts from the articles on the podcast, I was like, I want to become more involved in the VLD project. And I wondered how I could. Um, it's based in New York and I'm in California, so I couldn't probably help physically because that's a big distance between those two states. But I was like, well, there's blogs. I could write a blog. So that was one way I started sharing my stories than just on the podcast. I would write blogs about my experiences. And then I saw uh, attached to some of the blogs at the bottom, people will do a bio about themselves and they'll say NBLD Project Social Ambassador. And I'm like, what's that? So they have a page on their website about what that is, and basically, it is a person who helps spread awareness about NBLD or about other um, learning differences, and they do that by writing blogs and by being on podcasts or being interviewed by people from the NBLD project, different topics. And I like I like doing it because there's not too much commitment to it. You can write a blog every quarter of the year, and it could be one that you type, or it could be a video of you talking, which sometimes is easier for people. And I remember um, I used to use my podcast scripts for the blogs, but then I was like, but then I had to change some of the format to make it sound more like a blog. Because I would read it aloud. And I'm like, well, wait a second. You could do video blogs or vlogs. And I started doing that more, and that was easier. Um, so that's part of what I do as an NBLD Project Social Ambassador. And I also try to make sure that the uh, other Project Social Ambassadors get noticed. So I've had some of them on my podcast, which is kind of cool. And being able to learn more about that person uh, helps me learn how their life is different from mine. So yeah, that's one of the organizations I use to help me learn more about topics for my podcast.
Well, thank you for sharing this with us. And where can people find your vlogs or blogs and more information if they have any questions for you?
Yeah, so you can find the podcast by you can Google Living with Invisible Learning Challenge. And it should come up that way. Or if you Google living with NLD, it should come up that way because I use that phrase a lot on the podcast. And for the blogs, they should be linked to the NBLD project website. So if you Google it, NBLD project, they should come up on the website. And you can also find the podcast on all the podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple and Google. And if you want to, you can email me. I have my email usually on the on those platforms or on my website for the podcast. So usually I respond to those.
Very cool. And thank you. And again, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing all this with us, with me. I have learned a lot and more aware of more things now. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast.
You're welcome. And I would like to leave you with one comment, and that is from my heart and the heart of my shows to you. Thank you for what you're doing for humanity, and it is seen.
Thank you.
And do you have anything coming up that you want to promote or anything exciting before we go?
That's a good question. So, one of the ways I try to promote the podcast is I have this is a these two ways are relatively new. I have an Etsy shop that I have some knitted items that I make, like beanies or scarves on there, and they're all different, and it's called Woven Differently, and I named it that because I try to say, okay, nothing in life is perfect, and that's okay. So each of these items are going to look different, and I think that's a good thing. And so that's one thing that I'm trying to promote. And then the other thing would be I created a new website. It used to be Living with NLD, but I now have Living with Multiple Learning Differences because I wanted to try to be more inclusive of the different learning challenges that people can have. And I realized that through one of the interviews I did, I also have more than just NLD. So I was trying to, make people feel more inclusive with that. So I can give you the link if you want to share it later.
Sure. And thank you again. And I hope you have a wonderful day and weekend. And thank you to everybody who watched and participated in the chat room. And with that, we are going to say have a great afternoon, and we will see you on the next episode. And I will say, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow because you never know. Jennifer may be making another appearance. We'll have to see.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.